Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right. Hey, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm here with my friend and business partner, Dr. Jeremy Weisz, and we're going to do a quick live here to talk about a topic that everyone's thinking about right now, which is if you're stuck in the house, you're stuck working from home, you can't travel, you can't go out and network face-to-face maybe like you used to. How do you keep things moving forward in terms of your business? How do you keep developing relationships with new potential clients, new referral partners? What can you do? And Jeremy is an absolute expert in that. So for at least 11 years now, he's been involved in the world of podcasting. He was a senior producer from one of the early business podcasts, helping to put all of their systems in place and helping them to really add volume, feature, and edify tremendous numbers of different business leaders. And then has been running his own podcast, Inspired Insider, since 2011, and has been my business partner since 2015, and is one of the brightest minds when it comes to not just business, but also using business and content marketing and relationship building and networking, putting all those pieces together in a way that's fun and edifying and builds your network at the same time. So consequently, is one of the most well-networked people that I know. So Jeremy, let's tackle this topic. First of all, thanks so much for taking the time.
You know, it's funny. We talk 10 times a day, but we never take the time to do something like this. Never, but rarely. So thank you for having me.
This is only my second time interviewing you, I think, actually.
I know.
And it took me a couple years to get him on my podcast. It's actually one of the hardest gets I had. So let's break this down for people. So if you're listening to this and you're working from home now and you're doing your best to get the job done, and maybe you used to get your new clients and referrals from going to face-to-face events or from traveling or going to conferences and things like that. What can you do now in order to be able to continue to get leads and referrals and clients without being able to leave the house?
Yeah. I mean, there's several steps that we talk about in this day and age right now. And in general, how do you get clients and referrals? In this day and age, how do you get clients and referrals virtually? Right? Because we can't go to events, we can't do in-person meetings. And so we have, we were talking right before, there's really 4 things that we do personally and what we recommend clients and other people to do that will help you do this. And we'll map that out now. But the bottom line of how you do it in our minds is 2 very simple things. 1, you podcast. Podcasting, we've been doing this for over 10 years. And even before we had a service that helped people, we would tell everyone, if you have a business, you should have a podcast, period. It's the best way to give to your network. It's the best way to edify people. And so really is to bring them on and to give to people. And the best way to connect with anyone and help someone and form a relationship is to give to them. And so podcasting allows you the medium and the platform to give and bring people on. So we'll break down what are the 4 things? You don't have to use podcasting to give to people, right?
Sure.
There's
certainly.
other ways, right, John? That you can give to
I mean,
people.
I've done it with I've done it with a book. I wrote for Forbes and Business Insider and Entrepreneur and all these different publications. The problem these days is it's very difficult to do, and it really limits your ability to utilize this tool. So when I was writing for those publications, it was a lot of work. It's hard to get in there in the first place.
First of all, I hate writing, so that would be it.
Yeah, it's much more streamlined to have a conversation like we are right now and not have to worry about producing content afterwards or writing an article. So consequently, over the course of a year, you end up, magnifying the number of people that you can connect with and build a relationship with, which is really a critical component. By the way, Robert Kennedy is here. Robert Kennedy, good to see you here. Continue, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, I was going to say some other ways you can give to people, right, is, like you said, writing articles and featuring them in them. You can write a book and feature them. There's there's friends of ours and people we know have amazing services of, helping people write books. It is a lot of work to do that as well. But there's a lot of ways to edify and give to people.
Yeah. So how
we choose the medium of podcasting?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So let's break it down. So what's the process? And by the way, Dove Gordon is here. Dove, great to see you all the way from over in Israel. Mark Bayer, one of our favorite clients, all here. So thanks you guys for being here.
Dove, I owe you an introduction. Actually, it's like
look at the masterwork. Look at the masterwork.
Dove or Ian Garlic, if you're listening to this, I've been meaning to. Dove is an amazing JVMM service. He highly vets people. And Ian Garlic, if you're listening to this, I've been meaning to introduce you to because Ian is interested, Dove. So I will make sure I'm on record to make sure that happens. Dove.
Yeah, and just to say a word about Dove. Dove, what he does for some clients is he helps them to set up curated communities of really like-minded peers that you curate, and it becomes a tremendous source of referrals. And we've been members of Dove's community for 5-6 years now, or something like that, 7 years now, and it's been just an amazing source.
You've interviewed Dove, right?
I have, absolutely, yeah. So let's break into. So there's 4 steps.
Enough about
over the four steps of this process. And
so there's 4 steps really to help connect with clients and referral partners virtually. And the 4 steps, one is identifying them. Right? Most people don't take the time to identify their best referral partners, strategic partners, and clients. And what we didn't coin this term, but Dream 100 process, we go through with people their Dream 100 process and help them map out the best clients, referral partners, and strategic partners. And this, just to give you an example, there's many different categories that we go through. John, I haven't even counted them. We may go through over 20 different categories of potential strategic partners and referrals. One would be, I guess, a conference where your people, like, where do large, without going into too much detail right now, because we don't have tons of time, but where do large amounts of your clients gather? It could be an industry conference, and that'd be one example. The second, in addition to mapping this out and identifying, is the outreach. What do you use and do to reach out to them via, it could be text, phone, email. What messaging do you use, and how do you reach out to those people? And if you have a podcast, obviously it's, if you want to feature them on the podcast, it's a big give. Any give that you have is a great way. I don't like reaching out to people with, asking. I like to give. And so what is the give you can use as the outreach? The third is conducting the interview. Especially if you're doing a podcast, actually conducting it and then giving to them, edifying them, and continuing the conversation on the call when you're on with them, how you can maybe collaborate together and how you can help each other. And it's really about helping each other. And the fourth is actually publishing it. So once you conduct the interview, publishing it, and then not just publishing it and leaving it, but actually promoting it on email, social media, and letting the other person know that it's published so that they can let their fans and clients and family and friends know as well.
Okay, so that's all well and good, but we don't care about that. All we care about is let us know what kind of microphone we should buy and what kind of recording software. So forget about all that.
We can cover and the most common question is actually, John, with podcasting or anything as well, how do I get downloads? How do I get subscribers? What microphone do I use? What technology do I use? And listen, I'll answer that in 10 seconds so that you can forget about it, put it out of your mind, it's done, and focus on what the real question is how do you have it serve your business, right? A Blue Yeti, $100 USB mic on Amazon. We both use an ATR Audio Technica 2100, which I think upgraded to, it's not a 2100 anymore, it's something else. It's $70 on Amazon. And we use Zoom or some other, there's tons of ways to record, record an interview or content.
But the more important point is really, like, when people think about starting a podcast, they fixate on the wrong things. Like, what microphone do I buy? Rather than actually thinking deeply about who are the people I'm going to edify? Who are the people that I'm going to feature? Because that's going to affect how my network's going to grow, really. Like, ultimately, your network becomes the people that you decide to proactively reach out to and to feature.
Yeah.
And so
up-leveling your network, John, because, and I know, we know really, you take Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn or Tony Robbins, they still use interviews. They have probably amazing networks and know presidents and the top founders in the world. They still use interviews to edify people and to give to people and up-level in their networks, even though they're already, people consider them some of the most well-networked people in the world.
Yeah, so you see it happen a lot. So let's go a minute on each one. So first, identifying your Dream 100. How do you do that? How do you figure out who they are, what categories?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it briefly, is where do large, the best, you can go after, your Dream 100 could be clients, it could be referral partners, and it could be strategic partners, okay? So also, those are all going to be a little bit different. We like to go after the highest leveraged scenarios, so you can, go, if you're giving to a client, or you can give to a referral partner that maybe would refer you multiple clients every month or year, or whatever it is. So the question we always ask ourselves, and there's many different categories for this, like we mentioned, one, conferences, there's many categories, but where do large your clients live? And so you could just ask them, hey, what conferences do you go to? I mean, really, you could reach out to your clients now and just email them and say, what conferences do you go to? What associations are you a part of? And you can find out, oh, well, if they're a client, there's probably more of my clients there. And so that's a very simple way of formulating a list of places without even trying to think. I mean, you can go on, Google and search this stuff, but you could also just ask your clients what tools they use and what events they go to. That'd be one. So that's the Dream 100. I don't know if there's anything else you want to.
No, that's a great point. Okay. So, and then outreach. So doing the actual outreach. Okay.
Yeah, outreach, that gets into the elements of copywriting. After, you and I both know, I kind of geek out on copyright and direct response marketing. And I went, 6 months, I did a series on the top copywriting, direct response marketing people in the US and world, and the elements to include in an outreach message, right? And they're all, in the if you study any of this stuff, you need social proof in there, right? But in general, an outreach message you want to give to them. And so if you're reaching out to interview them, that's a give, but you want to formulate it in a way that they want to actually, you may know them or not know them. Let's assume you don't know them at all. You need to include certain elements in that outreach message, which is you need social proof in it, because they're like, who is this person? So you need to identify it. You need to be clear up front what is the ask, and it's not going to take a lot of their time necessarily or energy. And it goes back into social proof is, well, if the social proof is big enough, like I said, John, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast, or hey, John, I have 1 million followers. I'd love to email all of them.
But it does. That would be enticing, but a lot of times people think that's that holds them back, that they can't do it because they don't have a big enough audience. And actually, what we've seen is that you don't need to have a huge following like that. You'd be surprised at how many people say yes. And by the way, Mark Bayer, great question. Mark also asked if we could explain how the interview can lead to a client relationship. And Mark's podcast, by the way, When Science Speaks, really great podcast, folks, focused on people who want to get better at communicating science effectively in today's environment. And he's done an amazing job of this, of connecting with different scientists and academics and policymakers and media influencers. Talk, Jeremy, also about that.
To answer that question kind of goes in number one is your Dream 100. If you have the right person on the line with you that you're giving to, the right referral partner, strategic partner, then you already know that you can create a win-win scenario, because your clients, you can refer to them, and their clients can refer to you. So if you have the right person on, it starts there with the foundation. And assuming you have that on, you immediately, what we do is, how do you move a client? There's 7 ways we talked about how you move from an interview to a client referral partner or strategic partner. And the answer is just give as much as humanly possible to that relationship. But one specific way we do it is you make an introduction for them. How can you give to them? That's one way out of many ways. And we do this stuff naturally, John, and we mapped out 7 when we actually looked at what we actually do. We reverse engineered what we actually do, and that's how we came up with 7. We didn't just list them out. But one of the ways we do it is an
10
introduction.
years. 10 years of iterating and figuring out that there are really 7 different strategies. So
you and I make 10 to 20 introductions per day, probably. And so one is you make an introduction to that person's need. Are they going to love you for that? Of course. Like if Dove Gordon said, like, I'm looking for a coaching client, or I'm looking for more people to join JVMM, and I'm like, hey, Ian is amazing. I refer Ian to the JVMM. Of course, like that's eating exactly what he's maybe looking for. So make introductions whenever possible.
It's a win-win all around.
Yeah.
So
that'd be
number one was identifying your Dream 100. Number 2 was doing the
outreach, making sure you have the right outreach message with social proof. And you mentioned you don't need a big subscriber list or followers. You could grab, social proof. People have years in industry. People have clients they've worked with. People have, if you have a podcast, past guests you've had on. Here's other past guests. So there's a number of social proof elements. You don't need a big following like you mentioned. The third is actually conducting the interview, okay, like we mentioned, and producing the best content possible. And what that comes into is there's a whole, we've produced whole courses on this. I'm producing the best content and conducting the interview. But the bottom line I tell people is to just choose topics and ask questions that you are most interested in, because the audience will glean that you are interested in it. And also you want to make sure that you draw the best stories from that person. And so asking questions that draw the best stories. So that's a whole much longer conversation. There's a couple books like Made to Stick and Tell to Win that I've read, and there's multiple others that could go further into that. But then it's taking that interview and giving to that person, right? Which is, we talked about making introductions and other things. And the fourth is the publishing and promotion. So you want to make sure that it's something you're proud of. It's something that person's proud of. And so if you look at John's podcast as an example, smartbusinessrevolution.com, or mine, inspiredinsider.com, and you can see the elements that are in a post that make it look really good and the elements that you're proud of. And then you want to make sure you follow up with the guest afterwards, or anyone mentioned in that episode afterwards.
That's another great one, actually, is actually following up with other people mentioned in the episode. And because who's not going to go listen to it, right? Like, wow, they emailed me and told me that they talked about me.
If Dove wasn't listening right now, we would tag them in the comments and be like, Dove, we talked about you in the JVMM.
Yep. Actually, we'll do that for Ian. So just to sum things up, how to get clients and referrals when you're working from home. It's really a 4-step process. Number 1, identify your Dream 100 best clients, referrals, strategic partnerships. Take the time to actually map that out, which so many people do not do. Second is actually doing the outreach. And it's really more around the messaging, not so much about the medium, although, there are different mediums you can communicate: email, text, whatever, LinkedIn message. But it's really about, how do you create a compelling message? Number 3 is featuring the person in an interview, edifying them through that process, and then looking at opportunities for collaboration. I've had so many great conversations after an interview is over, after the microphone gets turned off, when the person's from my very first podcast interview, really, where the person says, well, that was a lot of fun. That was great. Thanks so much for doing that. Let's talk. Tell me more about what you do. How can we collaborate? How can we support one another? And it's just such a wonderful win-win scenario. And then finally, the fourth piece is publishing that episode and following up, and then continuing to deepen that relationship. Look for other opportunities to collaborate. Jeremy, any final thoughts?
No, final thoughts is, if you have questions, let us know. You can email support at rise25media.com. We have a lot of information on rise25.com. We do this for clients, obviously. As far as mapping 2 things, we help them map out the foundational pieces of actually starting a podcast, or actually how they can get ROI from a current podcast. And we also have an easy button where you push it, and then we do everything for you, so you can just worry about the relationships, the best relationships in your life. So
perfect. All right. And I see John Schumacher also stopped in. So John, good to see you here, and thanks everyone else for watching. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.